A young woman stands at a crossroads and faces the most difficult decision of her life. Behind her lies everything familiar: her homeland, her family, her gods. Ahead stretches an uncertain path to a foreign land where she'll be an outsider, unwanted, with no guarantee of survival. Her name was Ruth, and the choice she was about to make wouldn't just change her life. It would alter the course of human history forever. This isn't just another Bible story. This is a tale of loyalty so fierce it defied cultural boundaries, love so pure it conquered prejudice, and redemption so complete it reached from the dusty fields of Bethlehem all the way to the throne of the greatest king Israel would ever know. In this video, you'll discover how a foreign widow became the great-grandmother of King David, and how her story of faithfulness became a living prophecy of the Messiah himself. You'll witness love that transcends death, loyalty that breaks down walls, and divine providence working through the most unlikely circumstances.
If you love stories that bring the Bible to life like we do, join us by taking a moment to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. What Ruth faced then is what many are facing right now: a life-shifting decision. A moment where heartbreak, fear, and faith collide. Somewhere today, maybe even in your own heart, someone stands at that same crossroads. When life collapses, when you lose your job, your health, your marriage, or your hope, you're at Ruth's crossroads. Do you cling to what's safe or risk stepping into the unknown with faith and love? Every day, people leave everything: culture, language, family, for love or survival. Like Ruth, they face prejudice, economic risk, and the ache of, did I make the right choice? Millions sacrifice careers and comfort to care for aging parents. They walk Ruth's road, choosing love over ease. Many leave their childhood religion to embrace a partner's faith. They too live between worlds, accepted by none, faithful to both. Ruth's story aligns with what Harvard's 80-year grant study found. The quality of our relationships matters more than wealth, status, or even health. Ruth understood this 3,000 years before modern science caught up. She chose people over predictability, loyalty over logic, and God honored her courage. But to grasp how profound Ruth's decision was, we need to step into her world, a place where widows were powerless, foreigners were reviled, and love could rewrite everything. If you've ever stood at a kind of crossroad, if Ruth's story feels a little too close to home, leave a comment and share your journey. And if this speaks to you, subscribe to walk with us through stories that still shape lives today. Ruth was born in Moab, a pagan land east of the Dead Sea. Though descended from Lot, the Moabites were Israel's enemies. They worshipped Chemosh, a god who demanded child sacrifice. As a Moabite woman, Ruth grew up immersed in idolatry and moral permissiveness. Israelites viewed her people with deep distrust. When she married Mahlon, it was likely a practical arrangement. Mahlon was a foreigner, perhaps even despised in Moab. Ruth likely experienced cultural tension and identity conflict, struggling with prejudice, both directions. Torn between pagan gods and her husband's faith. In limbo, not fully Moabite, not yet Israelite, vulnerable, poor, childless in a patriarchal world. But something changed. Through Naomi's daily life, Ruth encountered Hesed, loyal covenant love. This love wasn't earned but freely given. It planted a seed of faith. When tragedy struck, Ruth faced a defining choice. Go back to what was familiar, or follow Naomi and Naomi's God into the unknown. She left behind legal security, cultural belonging, and potential remarriage. She embraced vulnerability, risk, and a foreign god. It defied logic. But love rarely makes sense. Ruth became more than a loyal daughter-in-law. She became a prophetic picture of God's heart for outsiders. Let's return to that dusty road, where her legacy truly began.
It was 1375 to 1050 BC. Israel had no kings, judges ruled, and chaos seemed to reign in every corner of the land. Famine had gripped Bethlehem. Ironically, Bethlehem, meaning the house of bread, had no bread. The fields lay barren, the wells ran dry, and families faced an impossible choice: stay and starve, or leave the promised land behind. Elimelech looked at his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. The decision tore at his heart, but survival demanded sacrifice. They would journey to Moab, enemy territory, a land of foreign gods and hostile people. It was meant to be temporary, just until the famine passed. But sometimes what we think will be a brief detour becomes a permanent exile. In Moab, tragedy struck like lightning. First, Elimelech died, leaving Naomi a widow in a foreign land. Then, as if fate hadn't been cruel enough, both of her sons married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. For 10 years there was a semblance of peace, a fragile happiness built on foreign soil. But then the unthinkable happened. Both Mahlon and Chilion died, leaving 3 widows to face an uncertain future together. Imagine Naomi's anguish. She had left Bethlehem full, with a husband and 2 sons. Now she sat empty, surrounded by the graves of her dreams. In that ancient world, a woman without male protection was vulnerable beyond measure. 3 widows together? It was a recipe for destitution. But then came news that would change everything. The famine in Israel had ended. God had remembered his people. For Naomi, it felt like a calling. Time to go home.
The 3 women began the journey back to Bethlehem. But with each step, Naomi's heart grew heavier. She stopped on the road and turned to her daughters-in-law, with tears streaming down her face. "Go back," she pleaded.
Return to your mother's homes. You've shown such kindness to my sons and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you finds rest in the home of another husband.
It was a mother's love speaking, selfless, sacrificial. Naomi knew that in Israel, these Moabite women would face prejudice, hardship, and likely never find husbands. Better they should stay in Moab, where they belonged, where they could start over. Orpah, after much weeping, kissed Naomi goodbye and turned back toward Moab. It was the practical choice, the safe choice. But Ruth clung to Naomi with a desperation that spoke of something deeper than duty. With a voice trembling with emotions, Ruth declared,
"Don't urge me to leave you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me severely if even death separates you and me."
These weren't just words, they were a covenant, a vow that would echo through eternity. Ruth wasn't just choosing to follow Naomi, she was choosing to abandon everything she had ever known for a God she was only beginning to understand. In that moment, on a dusty road between 2 worlds, Ruth made a decision that would place her in the lineage of the Messiah, the Lord Jesus himself. She chose loyalty over security, love over logic, faith over fear. And with that choice, she stepped into a story far greater than she could have ever imagined. When Ruth and Naomi arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred. "Can this be Naomi?" the women whispered. The woman who had left full had returned empty, broken by grief and hardship. "Don't call me Naomi," she said bitterly. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." But God was already at work, weaving threads of redemption through their pain. They had arrived at the beginning of barley harvest, perfect timing for what was about to unfold. Ruth, determined not to be a burden, volunteered to glean in the fields. Gleaning was back-breaking work, following behind the harvesters, picking up leftover grain under the scorching sun. It was charity disguised as labor, but it was survival. "Let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor," Ruth said to Naomi. And here's where the story takes a turn that can only be described as divine providence. Of all the fields in Bethlehem, Ruth happened to choose the field belonging to Boaz, a wealthy landowner who was also a close relative of Elimelech. When Boaz arrived at his field that morning, he noticed something unusual. A young woman working with extraordinary diligence among the gleaners. "Who is that young woman?" he asked his foreman. "She's the Moabite who came back with Naomi," came the reply. "She's been working steadily since morning, with only a brief rest." Boaz had already heard about Ruth, the foreign woman who had shown such loyalty to Naomi. Moved by her character and her dedication, he approached her with unexpected kindness. "Listen, my daughter," he said gently. "Don't go and glean in another field. Stay here with my women workers. I've told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you're thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars." Ruth was stunned. Why would this prominent Israelite show such favor to a foreign widow? Boaz's answer revealed the depth of his character. "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. You left your father and mother and your homeland to come to a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." That day, Ruth returned home with an abundance of grain, far more than any ordinary gleaner could expect. When she told Naomi about Boaz's kindness, the older woman's eyes lit up with hope for the first time in years. "That man is our close relative," Naomi explained. "He's one of our kinsman redeemers." In Israelite law, a kinsman redeemer had the right and responsibility to marry a deceased relative's widow, preserving the family line and protecting the inheritance. It was more than just marriage. It was redemption in its purest form. As the harvest season continued, Ruth worked faithfully in Boaz's fields, always under his protection. But when the harvest ended, Naomi knew they needed a more permanent solution. She devised a plan that was both bold and risky. "Tonight, Boaz will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor," Naomi told Ruth. "Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you're there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he's lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." It was a plan that required tremendous courage and faith. Ruth would be approaching Boaz in the middle of the night in a gesture that could easily be misunderstood. But it was also a formal request for him to fulfill his role as kinsman redeemer. "I will do whatever you say," Ruth replied, once again demonstrating the loyalty that defined her character. That night, under a canopy of stars, Ruth approached the sleeping Boaz and quietly uncovered his feet, a symbolic gesture requesting his protection and provision. When Boaz awoke at midnight, startled to find someone there, Ruth made her request with humble boldness. "I am your servant, Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer." Boaz's response revealed both his integrity and his growing affection for Ruth. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." But there was a complication. There was another relative who was closer than Boaz, who had the first right of redemption. Boaz, being a man of honor, would have to settle this matter legally and publicly. The next morning, Boaz went to the town gate, the center of legal proceedings in ancient Israel. When the closer relative appeared, Boaz presented the situation before 10 elders as witnesses. "Naomi is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech," Boaz explained. "I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it." The man was interested until Boaz revealed the full obligation. "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. Suddenly the deal became less attractive. The man would have to spend his resources on property that would ultimately belong to Ruth's future children, not his own heirs. "Then I cannot redeem it," he said, "because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself." And with that, he removed his sandals and gave it to Boaz, the ancient way of transferring rights. The path was now clear.
"Today you are witnesses," Boaz declared to the elders and all the people, "that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." The people responded with enthusiastic blessing. "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel." So, Boaz took Ruth as his wife, and the Lord enabled her to conceive. When their son was born, the women of the town celebrated with Naomi. "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." They named the child Obed. And here's where the story takes on cosmic significance. Obed became the father of Jesse, and Jesse became the father of David, Israel's greatest king. But the story doesn't end there. Centuries later, when Matthew recorded the genealogy of Jesus Christ, he included Ruth by name. Boaz the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. A Moabite woman, from a people traditionally excluded from Israel's assembly, became the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestor of Jesus Christ himself. Ruth's story is more than just a beautiful tale of loyalty and love. It's a prophetic picture of redemption itself. Just as Boaz redeemed Ruth, paying the price to bring her into his family and give her a future and a hope, so Jesus Christ redeems us, paying the ultimate price to bring us into God's family. Ruth's journey from foreign widow to honored ancestor shows us that God's love knows no boundaries. Her loyalty to Naomi mirrors the kind of faithfulness God desires from us, and her inclusion in the Messiah's lineage reminds us that God often chooses the unlikely, the marginalized, the overlooked to accomplish his greatest purposes. What seemed like a series of tragedies, famine, death, displacement, became the very circumstances through which God worked his redemptive plan. Ruth's small acts of faithfulness, her daily choices to love and serve, rippled through history to bless the entire world. Today, your story is still being written. Like Ruth, you may be facing difficult choices, uncertain futures, or seasons of loss. But remember, the same God who guided Ruth's steps to Boaz's field is guiding your steps today. Your faithfulness in small things, your choices to love and serve, may have consequences far beyond what you can imagine. If Ruth's story has touched your heart, share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that God is working behind the scenes in their life. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful Bible stories that reveal God's heart for humanity. And remember, in God's economy, no act of faithfulness is ever wasted, and no story of redemption is ever truly finished.